Hey guys, Sandy here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I am playing with the Radiant Rainbow stamp set from Brutus Monroe. So it's got a bunch of different rainbows, some clouds, hearts, stars, a sun, a couple little sentiments, little icons, all kinds of great stuff. And I'm also playing with embossing powder. So I have a whole bunch. I have rainbow, red through purple. I do know there's only 6 colors here, people, but work with me. I've also got Raven and Icicle, which is my absolute favorite. As you can tell, look at the big jug of it I have. Some embossing ink, and I'm going to be working on some watercolor paper today. So let's see what I can do. All right, guys, so I am working directly into my stamp positioner tool. I have my 12 by 12 sheet of watercolor cardstock down, or watercolor paper, I guess I should say. I'm using this Radiant Rainbow stamp set from Brutus Monroe, and my plan is to emboss the entire background. So I'm just taking all of the stamps off the stamp set and figuring out where they need to go. Now I keep putting my matted photos down because I don't want to waste time by going ahead and embossing or anything underneath of the photos. Since I know where I want my photos to go, I'm not going to worry about that. Now, if I was just making the background and I had no idea what photos I was going to use yet, or I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted my photos to go on the page, then that is when I would have just gone ahead, created the background, and figured it out afterwards. But like I said, I already know, so I am just being careful with where I am putting all of these stamped bits. Okay, so I eventually get this figured out. I'm not going to make you watch me emboss the entire background, although it would be totally awesome because embossing is magical. I just flip the lid over. What that's going to do is pick up every single one of those stamps at one time, and then I'm going to be able to stamp all at once. Now, the reason why I decided to do it in a stamp positioner tool was because I am going to be able to ink all of the stamps, slap it down on my paper, re-ink, and slap it down. Now, since I am using watercolor paper for this, as you guys know, unless you're buying some smooth watercolor paper, which this is not, it has little divots and valleys in it. So I want to make sure that my embossing ink is nice and thick, and it's going to give me a nice stamped image when I am finished. So you really can't see it, but I promise you that the images are stamped right there. And then I'm going to take my Icicle embossing powder. Now this is a beautiful clear embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. And I am going to go ahead and emboss. So I let my heat gun heat up just for a few moments there. That way, as soon as I start applying heat to my embossing powder on the page, it's going to start getting smooth and melty, and the air from the heat gun is not just going to start blowing the embossing powder away before it is hot enough to get smooth and melty. So the magicalness, that's a thing, right? Magicalness of embossing. So again, you can't really see it because it is clear embossing powder, but you will when I get moving on what else I'm doing. So I've moved over to a smaller stamp positioner tool, and that is because I am not working on a huge 12 by 12 background. Again, I am just embossing various stamped images from the Radiant Rainbow stamp set. Now you can get this stamp set in the inspiration box, which is a monthly box that comes with a stamp set, all kinds of goodies in there. So check that out if you're interested. Now here I am actually going to stamp and emboss colors of the rainbow. So I'll have red, yellow, orange, green, blue, and purple. I'm not doing 2 shades of purple, just one, because I am going to cluster up my rainbows when I'm finished. Now, the Radiant Rainbow stamp set does have a coordinating die set. I do not have the die set, but it was easy enough for me to just cut out the rainbows with some scissors. So now I am using the watercolor paper that I embossed, and I am putting Brutus Monroe Aqua Pigments directly onto the watercolor paper. I sprayed it with a little bit of water at first, and now I am just making beautiful rainbow colors happen by painting on the watercolors, which are aqua pigments. Aqua pigments are essentially a watercolor. So now you can see that it is resisting. The aqua pigment does not go where it has been embossed, but obviously it gets in all of the little bits, so your rainbows are going to pop up like magic from your background. It's amazing. Like, there's so much magicalness in scrapbooking, embossing, painting, all of it's magic. So now I've got the blue down, and then I'm going to add down the purple. So I have this just painted, and I'm going over a little bit so that my colors are a little bit blended, just like a little bit of a soft blend. I don't want them to be totally merged together where you can't really tell where one starts and one ends, but a little bit of a soft blend. And then I decided that my red was showing up a little bit too pink, so I needed to add a little bit more red. And then the same thing with the purple down in the corner. You could barely see it. Now I do take a paper towel and wipe over top of my page there. That way any watercolor or water that has pooled on top of my embossed images can just be wiped off. So here I am just cutting these rainbows out quickly. Like I said, really simple to cut these out if you don't have the die set. The smaller images might be a little bit more difficult to detail cut out, but the rainbows, super easy. So I have a total of 6 rainbows. I have the red, the orange, and the yellow that I'm going to cluster together, and then I have the blue, the green, and the purple that I am going to cluster together as well. And I'm going to cluster them opposite of what they are here on the page. So I add a good amount of adhesive and end up using all of the adhesive out of the gun, and I place it right down on top of the page. Now this is sea glass, and it was presented in basically rainbow order, so I thought that this would be a perfect motif to do my sea glass. So I do pop up some of the rainbows that I have cut out onto just some regular old fun foam. And I am overlapping the rainbows just so that I have a cute little cluster. Now I am using a liquid glue to make sure that the rainbows stick down for 2 reasons. One, I'm adhering over top of something that is embossed, and I'm also adhering to watercolor paper, so I want to make sure that I use liquid glue to go ahead and get into those nooks and crevices, just like I use a liquid glue when I use glitter glaze. So I go ahead and get those done. I've got my 3 clusters. So as you can see, my red, yellow, and orange is down at the bottom where I have the blue, green, and purple, and my blue, green, and purple is up at the top where I have the red, orange, and yellow. I add a little bit of journaling, a date, a title, and then of course some of these really awesome decorative detail dots from Brutus Monroe, and then that is going to finish off my layout, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys again real soon for another video.